Leaked government document shows Spain wants to ban end-to-end encryption. We, the citizens, need access to all the politicians' communication, just in case if they do anything illegal. 24/7 microphones, digital communication tracker, etc. Let's start with that, and then move on to normal people, if politicians still believe in no privacy. As a first step, I'd settle for one-party consent for recording everywhere. And no more unrecorded votes. Can someone steelman the argument against one-party consent? I literally can't think of any reason anyone would want it, other than wanting to be able to lie about what they said later. It doesn't even help people who are saying things that might be dangerous if they leak, since illegal equals impossible. Can someone steelman the argument against one-party consent? I literally can't think of any reason anyone would want it, other than wanting to be able to lie about what they said later. Are you actually asking Hacker News, in a thread about banning encryption? Why, if you have nothing to hide you have nothing to fear, is not a good justification for being monitored without your consent? I don't consider it being monitored when the person you're talking to is the one doing the recording. Contrast, I'm legally allowed to keep emails sent to me after I first read them, with other people are legally allowed to read emails sent to me. Wouldn't almost everyone agree that the former is a good thing but the latter would be a bad thing? It is so ridiculous that the exact same discussion has to be repeated again and again. The arguments haven't changed. Bad thing is happening and we need this to ensure it doesn't anymore. The bad thing changes to what's currently the most popular threat, although protecting children is obviously an all-time favorite. I think the next angle will be that it's needed to prevent hate speech. Any other ideas? Well, some states are already banning talking about gay and transgender people and are banning books related to those topics and others that go against their beliefs. As a matter of fact, it seems over my 40 years here that most of the time it's religious extremists who want to ban speech and literature. I haven't seen much legal action taken against fundamentalist religious literature, no matter how hateful, though. Edit. Love this was flagged, even though I didn't break any rules. I was just stating facts. Most of the bans today are by Christians against LGBTQ folks, not the other way around as the op stated. I guess that is par for the course here. Love this place for tech discussion, but when it gets political it turns a bit fascist in here. Banning from where? If you are talking about what is happening around the country at school board meetings, then you are framing things pretty poorly. Banning from where? I used to buy the incrementalist argument that these books are inappropriate for grade schoolers. But then the law, predictably, was extended to high school and shows no sign of stopping. Banning books has never been looked back on as a sign of a strong society. School is meant to be about resolving conflicting ideas. Pretending kids aren't getting 10x worse on the internet, or from their friends with an internet-connected device, just separates society into an imbecilic underclass and ones who can afford a more interrogative education. Those who deliberately blur the line between book banning and setting the curriculum in schools are dishonest, at best. Clearly, everyone who believes in free speech believes that all adults should have access to any and all books, pamphlets and printed material, no matter how obscene or objectionable that material is. However, those who suggest that any and all printed material, no matter how obscene or objectionable, should be allowed in classrooms, let alone into the classrooms of young children, are extremists who should not be taken seriously. Even worse, the notion that parents should not have any input about what obscene or objectionable material their children are exposed to in public school is profoundly authoritarian. The line between book banning and setting the curriculum in schools, both sides do this. Parents should have a direct say in the books teachers assign their students. One group of parents doesn't get to decide which books are and aren't allowed in a library. The idea that there are two sides is a contrived fallacy. I'm not on anyone's side. I believe in absolute, unfettered free speech for adults and that every parent has an absolute right to decide what their own children are exposed to. Right. So those parents should take it up with their kids, rather than prevent mine from access. Either that, or we could reorganize public schools to get back on track as to what their purpose actually is. I don't want crazy religious idea being taught. I don't want people's opinions about how there are 57 genders being taught, and I don't want a teacher or a school district trying to instill their chosen value system on my child. I want them to learn how to read. I want them to learn how to write. I want them to learn how to add and subtract. Frankly, considering how miserably school systems are failing to teach kids basic literacy, they should be embarrassed to even discuss their cultural, religious and/or political agenda, even when they insist that their agenda isn't cultural, religious and/or political. When I was in school 40 years ago, with 3 or 4 exceptions out of a class of 100, every child could read, write and do math at or near grade level. I didn't know a single thing about the personal lives of any of my teachers, whether they were married, had kids, and certainly not what their sexual orientation was. It didn't matter because they were there to teach academic subjects. Nor did any of my teachers know, or concern themselves with, my personal life, my sexual orientation or anything else aside from my academic performance in the subject they were teaching. There are a lot of reasonable, normal people who just want schools to become centers of academic learning again instead of another battleground in the cultural war. States are not banning books and talking about gay and transgender people. Not sure where you got that info from. As I understand, what they are doing is removing non-age appropriate books from elementary and middle school libraries, some of which include LGBTQ content. I would not call this banning a book, in the same way that not being able to watch violent movies in elementary school is not banning a movie. I would suggest you look into the content of the books being challenged and come to your own conclusion as to whether they are age-appropriate or not. After all, the term, age-appropriate, is subjective. In a world where encryption is banned, will it be illegal to transmit a blast of static? Will it be a crime to transmit words that aren't good, clear Spanish? If no, what if it's a crazy complicated language? Will it be a crime to transmit Spanish with bad grammar? What if I transmit a billion random Spanish words? This is already tested somewhat in the UK, where you're required by law to provide a password to an encrypted file or volume when asked. If you're in possession of the encrypted volume, the courts assume you know the password, and throw you in jail if you don't. Obviously, this can be easily abused by slipping an encrypted USB drive into someone's backpack. The point is that they will look at intention and surrounding context. Is there a crime leading to you in some way, and could it have been facilitated in part by encrypted messaging? Did you also transit a billion random Spanish words during this time frame? If so, it seems to follow by their current laws and logic that they can assume this was encrypted information and therefore broke the law. And if you refuse to decrypt it for them, that's another broken law. You're speaking as if this will help you. If you go to the prosecution, trial phase, you will be found guilty since you probably hadn't the best OPSEC and forensic analysis of your computer found the encryption, steganography software you used. Or you left something in the system logs, e.g. timestamps of accessing files. Or you left something in the thumbnail cache. Or you did not rename the file before deleting it. Or the timestamp analysis of e.g. your browser data and logs will show clear behavioral patterns pointing to you hiding data. If you use VMs, their RAM is stored in a plaintext file unless you configure it otherwise. On your SSD it never goes away due to wear protection. Even if you had an encrypted drive, you will be forced to give them the key. Then they will rederive the master key and analyze parts of the disk-free space to find something on you. Again, on SSD this is a certainty, and on, for example, BitLocker you can never change the master key, ensuring you going to jail. Even if all of this did not incriminate you, you're in trouble for something in the first place, since you're on trial, right? So probably other people you communicated with led them to you. And in this case, the judge applies common sense. There is this traffic cell of 6 people and on 5 computers we have clear evidence, but on 6th nothing. Therefore you're still probably 95+% guilty. Judges aren't stupid. People making comments like yours annoy me since you seem to be calming people down that we could endure total strong encryption ban, while we absolutely could not. Crazy that we need big corporations to protect us from the government. It was supposed to be the other way around. I just don't understand how they think they can do so. It's not even the why. I get the why, even though I obviously don't agree. It's the how. How do you ban cocaine? How do you ban special parts in guns that make them automatic? How do you enforce any law that's not practical to enforce? You just make it a felony with a penalty of decades of imprisonment. Then, all the businesses stop doing it and you selectively enforce the law in order to make an example out of people. The idea is never to enforce it fully. If encryption is a felony, your average business will stop using it, which is pretty much the desired effect. They don't care so much about your personal website or data store using encryption. They'll just make it a fringe technique. Anyone with any insight as to why this topic is suddenly in the limelight in so many places at the same time? I find it remarkable that, even though the UK government is desperate to demonstrate any form of tangible benefit to Brexit, and talks about independence and sovereignty etc., it is moving in exactly the same direction as EU nations on this, ignoring all advice to the contrary. To be honest, I'm kind of feeling left out. My messages are boring. Perhaps if this nonsense goes ahead, I'll start communicating dinner plans with my wife through our own custom key pairs, just to mess with them. The dirty secret of the web is that the past 2 decades of VLOPs have led to a stunning increase in CSAM and sex trafficking. Governments know this from initial good faith participation by VLOPs to escalate abuse to authorities. They were quickly overwhelmed. We know all this because of investigative journalism done by NYT in 2019. VLOPs are interested in E2E encryption now because it lets them ignore their sexual abuse problem by making it untraceable and therefore unreportable. No normal user needs or benefits from E2E encryption on Facebook. We don't need a blanket ban of E2E encryption, but we do need regulation around who can use it and when. Preventing VLOPs from smoke screening their platform abuse is a good middle ground. Many idealistic technocrats on the web already believe E2E encryption is an absolute moral good, so it's hard to even get the conversation started. As evidenced by the extremely simplistic black and white takes in this thread. VLOPs are counting on this when they market E2E features as in their users' best interest. I suppose that massive increase of cases is why the special sex trafficking courts the US government set up in 2018 shut down for lack of cases. This is just an oath scare like the Red Scare, terrorism, etc. Very little actual impact or events, but huge response in terms of getting re-elected and showing eyes ads, so it's blown way out of proportion in the public discourse. Basing your laws off the needs of corporate persons instead of human persons is bad policy. Authoritarianism might look good in the short term, but Godwin, will you suggest going after the post office for people mailing illegal items too? It's misplaced. The person who commits the crime commits the crime.